Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet, and today we are checking out chapters 59 and 60 of Tower of God. So, the last chapter that we went through, I feel like was not really action heavy, but we had some pretty important information switching around with the whole Bomb just standing up and telling everyone that he's an irregular, which is probably going to be something that causes some ripple effects, if you will, into future things. Now that everyone knows, and there's a lot of negative connotations to that, but we also have him being able to go to the administrator. I feel like I'm still going to get these rankings wrong. The giant eel, to have his own special test so that he can basically bargain for Rachel to be able to come with him. And Kun, being the devious person that he is, has used reverse psychology to get all of the other regulars to help Bomb. So everyone has decided to go and join the test with him. So I'm assuming that we're going to be getting into some of that stuff as they go to see whatever this test is. It's probably going to be more difficult than anything that they've got up before. I'm definitely worried because they've been through some stuff, like people have died. So I'm a little bit nervous about them doing something even more difficult. And I don't even know if it's going to be, I feel like this is going to be one of those things where it seems really intense in the moment while I'm reading it, and then 100 chapters from now I'm gonna be like, remember when they did that test? It was so easy back then. I feel like it'll be so different in retrospect, because I feel like this is only going to get more intense as they continue with whatever their tower journey is. I'm assuming they get to move on, but I mean, they could blindside me in some way. I don't know, because we're getting closer and closer to what the end of this season is going to be. And I feel like since we tend to focus on the single tests for a while, I don't know if we're going to get another test, because I feel like that wouldn't make sense. I feel like they're going to stay on this floor, and then that's going to be where the end of the season is, if I had to make a prediction. So I feel like this might be kind of the big test, the one that's going to be kind of the climactic ending of the first season. So it looks like we might be going into some other stuff first, kind of set up for that test before we actually see it happen. But let's just get into chapter 59. Okay. Chapter 59. Looks like we're dealing with the funeral for Ho. It's just such a heavy topic. I feel like, I don't know, even though other people have died up to this point in the test, I feel like because they got time to actually know who Ho is and have an idea of him, and then to have that broken by this feeling of betrayal, or this completely break in character, and all the things that that kind of symbolizes, like someone who loses themselves because they're so desperate to progress through the tower to get that thing that they think they desire. And I feel like there's so much ambiguity already being introduced into the story of whether or not what you get at the top of the tower is actually what you think it is. And I've had some conversations with people in comments of my last reaction about this, because there's this paradox, right, of if, I think someone said if two people get to the top of the tower, their desire is to be the most powerful person, they can't both be simultaneously the most powerful person. So there's this paradox of getting to the top of the tower and thinking that you're going to get what you desire, but there's also an impossibility to that too. So I feel like Ho just kind of was symbolic of what they were all willing to do. And even at the end, you see him realize that it wasn't really what he wanted. He would have chosen differently, I think, given the choice. So there's lots of layers to losing Ho that I think add a lot of nuance to what's going on. And if someone that they've only knew for that set of time, like they did with Ho, I think now if some regulars died, what kind of emotional impact that would be, because they've bonded through this tragedy and they've bonded through other trials and spending time together, that you spend enough time in a high pressure situation with people, you start to bond. So it's just going to get more and more difficult if people get hurt or worse as they progress through this tower and all of the different tests and things. It makes me wonder what happens with the other rankers though, because they must have had a similar experience. It kind of explains why some of them are a little bit unhinged, especially from an emotional standpoint. Also the symbol of the water again, it's like he's encased underwater. Are you having champagne? Wine? Offering it to Ho, mixing it in. These are all just beautiful panels. I feel bad for not just stopping and looking at them more in depth. Just the lighting on the water and the fact that there's a shadow over their faces because they're backlit. It's really pretty. I like that we get the cut to Rachel, who's still looking out even though she can't be part of it, but at least she's awake. There's that. Ooh, oh no. Hang on. So I was reading this with my patrons, but my internet said nope, so we're back to being alone while reading this, I guess. Last examination, see? I was like, I feel like this is gonna be the last one. And it wouldn't make any sense to go to floor, like, 3 and then end the season in my brain. So I feel like this is gonna be the last one for the season. Makes me excited about what potentially it could be, but also has some apprehension to it. Is Bomb learning to fight? I mean, I know that he like kind of knows a little bit about how to use like Shinsu to fight, but he doesn't really know anything about hand-to-hand combat, and he's with Endorsi for this. Endorsi's probably a good teacher for this because she can move. Look how tiny he looks though. Oh, didn't even know what was going on. That also seems to make sense. When it comes to fighting, like, Endorsi was even holding her own against Anak, and then someone like Bomb, I don't see that being an even match, which is probably the point. Like, he wants to train with someone who is clearly much, much better at combat than he is, so that he can learn those skills, because if he's gonna have to do some of this on his own, if he's gonna have to fight on his own, then he's gonna need those skills. And I think it's probably a good thing anyway, because he keeps running into instances where he's isolated from his friends, whether that was in the hide and seek challenge or even just like not being with them 24/7. Like, he's not going to be with Rock all the time. So if he's in some kind of hand-to-hand combat situation, he's going to need to be able to handle that on his own. And I think it also says a lot about Bomb as like a person, that he's trying to develop as an individual, because I feel like that really didn't happen for him earlier on. I feel like he was very much reliant on Rachel and like the people directly around him to fill in all the gaps of who he was, because he doesn't have memories of that. So he was just sort of a blank slate that was very much reliant on his environment and the people directly around him. Whereas now he's really actively trying to work on who he is, what skills he has, what he wants to develop into. And I think that that's like a really cool way of getting to the end of the season compared to the beginning, that he is far more self-sufficient, if not probably to the caliber that he should be for someone who just kind of stumbled into the tower. He probably should have had some of this knowledge beforehand, but he's getting that knowledge now, and I think that that's more important. Better late than not at all. Aw, do they have little notes? Are they working on strategies? Because I'm assuming that is a doodle of rock. Are we back to normal size, or are we still chibi? I've only seen the head, so I don't know. It looks like he's back to normal size, throwing spears. I'm gonna miss Chibi Rock. He was so cute. He was just a tiny ball of rage, and I love him. Look how proud, though. So short-lived. He was so proud of that throw, and then immediately shown up. They must have some riveting conversations. I love how they're just like super competitive immediately. Are we being given a sword? A lot of like a lack of dialogue. And I think that that is something that's really hard to do, to tell narrative in a comic without actually having to tell it. I feel like comics rely a lot on dialogue because that's the form of like getting information across. It's not like a novel where you can have lots of paragraphs that set up a scene. You have a picture and then you have to give certain information through dialogue. Ideally, you get pretty good at showing it rather than having someone say that there's important information, but dialogue is very heavy in comics, which is why I compare it a lot to movies and TV shows. Like, you can show a lot of things and you can set up scenes, and a lot of the time you use panels that don't have dialogue for establishing scenes, showing specific details, world build or character build. Like, if you see someone working on a specific skill with a lot of detail, then you learn a lot about them if they're like very meticulous about something. Like we saw with Hung Sung when he was making the coffee, there were lots of panels that went through him making that, because coffee is something that he is passionate about, but also he's very meticulous about it. So getting all of those panels that walk through that not only set up the scene as being like more like laid back, but it also shows that Hung Sung is very particular and pays attention attention to minute details in what he is passionate about. So that shows you a lot of character without actually getting into the dialogue where Hang Sung talks about liking coffee. But a lot of the time you have movies and TV shows that center around dialogue. You have certain shots where you're seeing certain characters saying things. You get a lot of the basic information about the plot and the characters through what they talk about and how they talk about it. So having these panels without any kind of dialogue boxes sets up a new challenge, because you have to be able to show everything that's important, while also I feel like there's a certain amount of mystery to this because we're prepping to go into something else, but it also flexes the skills of the person who is drawing the panels. And there are actually some really good comics out there that don't use any dialogue at all, and if you want some warm and cozy feelings, then you should definitely read some of those. The ones that I can think of are Slice of Life. They're actually on Webtoon if you want to check them out. One of them is Love Doesn't Talk, and the other one is Coco Latte. They're both by the same author. They're beautiful watercolor style panels. Like, it's actually a gorgeous comic anyway if you just want to like look at really beautiful art. Highly recommend those ones. But also, there's basically no dialogue. Sometimes there are text messages shown to give information or to expand on characters, but there isn't actually anything said in it in terms of like text bubbles. Check those out if you want to go into that. It's a very different vibe from Tower of God, so I know that it probably isn't for a lot of people, but having to tell a story without dialogue is significantly harder. So I find it interesting that that is what most of this chapter is. I'll be interested to see if that breaks. Like, if we continue to just show basically establishing shots, little montage moments for each of these characters. It's like we're checking in with everyone before we shift to the next thing. I like how we went back to this of just continuing to throw the spears. Oh, hello. Are we not in costume? It's kind of freaky. Like, I know it was a costume, but I don't know if I'm ready to see what's inside. What's the necklace and the note? I don't know what to think anymore. Giving her a chair to move around? That's good. And now she's like awake and sort of moving around. I don't know how much of that is really happening, but figuratively speaking. Aw. I like the idea of them all just like hanging out, you know, enjoying food. I don't know why it looks like they're just put like a bunch of napkins on the floor and just piled the food in, but okay. I know that it's common in South Korea to have like more communal meals. So it's more like having a bunch of dishes on the table and people eat from those like all together, as opposed to like North America where everyone has their own plate and there usually isn't food on the table. At least not in my house. It was always you had your plate and it was filled beforehand, and then you went and you sat at the table. But it's still weird that they just like it doesn't look like they have like anything separated out into like actual dishes, but to each their own, I suppose. You can't force people to drink. Looks like he might be a lightweight though. It's nice to see them having fun though, you know, because they've been through a lot of heavy stuff, and it's about to get heavy again. I'm assuming that the next challenge, the last examination, isn't going to be a fun time. You know, it's not going to be like, let's make friendship bracelets. So I feel like it's good that they're having a moment to just be together and be happy and laugh and make jokes and things like that. See, this is literally what I was talking about, the montage. Oh, I like that she's like coming into the moment because she's like, I have all these friends, and Lorraine still asleep, which, I mean, mood. Are we meeting with the teacher? No, it was Rachel. So are we finally gonna get an interaction with them actually talking? She's not gonna be like, just lie and say I'm not there, because he's totally gonna believe that he just imagined all of the things that happened. Definitely isn't smart enough to know what's going on. Look at his little smile though. I feel like he's so hopeful, and it is going to break him. There are hundreds of chapters to this story, and I do not see a way for there to be that much content for this to end well for Mom. Yeah, no, I don't see that being the outcome. Ooh, I love this shot of them both having their eyes not visible, because it's like while they're both there together and they're smiling, if you can't see their eyes, it means they're hiding something. And I like that they're mutually hiding something. They both have things that they don't want the other one to know. Like, it's supposed to be this very like soft, sweet moment of them together smiling, kind of enjoying this quiet moment before things probably go haywire, and they're keeping things from each other. There's something ominous about that, especially with the lighting, since there's like the darkness at the bottom. So like as you're scrolling, you go from like this lighter hue to a darker hue, which is really prominent here because it's supposed to be nighttime, which I'm assuming it is. And I don't know exactly how night and day works in the tower, if it is actual sun or if it is artificial in some way. But when you are painting a background at night, if you're going to have some kind of light source that is natural, it comes from the bottom because the sun sets So if there's going to be any light that is still coming from the sun, it's going to be at the bottom of your horizon, and then you work up into the darker hues. I momentarily got distracted because my family is definitely watching baseball right now, and I'm assuming something good happened because there was cheering. So I don't know if there is actually a light source somewhere else in the tower that makes the lighting come from the top. It does seem like there is now that I scroll back, but I feel like part of that is the world building. But another part of it is there's something artificial about it. Like there's something ominous just from like how we're transitioning from light into darker tones, but there's also something artificial. And I think that really lends to this idea that something about this relationship is broken, right? There's something that they have lost over the events that have happened, and they're keeping things from each other. They're hiding things. Something isn't what it's supposed to be. There is something missing from the genuine nature of this relationship. So just all of this in the panel, beautifully done. Just sometimes I gotta gush about the artwork. It just, my artist brain needs to do it sometimes. We back to training. I like that. I like that we're going back to something that's very similar to the panels that we saw at the beginning of the chapter. So it's like a loop, which is also nice storytelling to say this is happening again. Like we're going through the motions again, but maybe he'll be able to hold his own a little bit better. So to show that progress, implying that it's happened enough times that he's able to improve. Yeah, see, he didn't fall over when she hit him this time. He might be about to do it though. Hey, dodge! See, I love that how we saw the loop. It implies that this is something that happens regularly. It's this kind of scheduled thing, and we're seeing improvement, which implies that this isn't actually the second time, just because this is the second time in the comic. It implies that it's happened enough times that now we're at this point. So it's a good way of showing that time has passed and showing that progression, while still calling back to what was at the beginning of this chapter, so that you're reminded of that as we've gone through the story. It's like, oh yeah, remember what was happening at the beginning of this? That's still relevant. Oh, look at his happy little face that he succeeded. I hope he gets like a cookie or something. I hope he gets a treat to be like, look how good you were. Oh, couldn't let him have it though. That does seem like Endorsey. She's like, I feel like she would not easily give up a win. She will take that moment, even if it's only like a petty win, if it's not a true win, she'll take it. Oh, but she's also offering him a hand up. We love character development, don't we? Because if I remember correctly, there was a time when I think Anak fell down, like she tripped Anak, and I don't think she helped her up. So I feel like it's calling back to that scene. I'd have to go back and see if I'm actually right. You guys will probably comment, which I appreciate when people are like, yes, you're remembering correctly, or telling me that I'm not remembering correctly, because that also happens. Oh, did she not actually help him up? Dorsey. I like how we also have the little panel of Rock with the other regular that are just continuing to aggressively throw spears to see who's better. Look at all of them gathering, getting ready to go on this together. Some of them more willing than others. Got a few costume changes again too, at least with Bomb and Endorsey. Endorsey makes sense, she's a very like fashion person. But I love seeing Bomb's costume changes because I feel like Bomb isn't the kind of person who thinks a lot about how he looks or is very mindful of that. Like Endorsey thinks about how she looks and how she presents herself, and that's very strategic on her part. She wants to be seen in a certain way, whereas like Bomb doesn't use that. He doesn't use his appearance as a tool to have a certain initial impression on people. So when he changes his outfits, it always seems very narrative to me. It's always a transition from who he was to who he is now. And some of that's practical, of like his outfit wrecked in some capacity in the last test or challenge or whatever, but I like that we're seeing that shift of him like presenting himself differently physically. What's it called? Ominous screeching. And that look from Hong Sung, that can't be good. I have a bad feeling about this one. I mean, I did before, but like especially now that we're getting to that moment. This is the first time I think we're seeing any text bubbles is from Hong Sung. That's an interesting narrative choice too, because we have all this kind of montage, very like visual storytelling, which sounds weird to say for a comic, but like it's very visual centric. And then the person who speaks is Hong Sung. And I think that that is very telling of how in control of what's happening Hong Sung is. Hong Sung has more information, he has more control, and he has more authority because he gets to speak and he gets to speak first. I feel like that's just a really good touch to what the narrative is trying to tell us. I feel like when you're learning how to tell stories in comic form or in anything, you always say, oh, the main character has to have the first say, has to have the most lines, has to be the first character that you think of to like do things and say things, because you have the mind of a protagonist being very centric, but in reality, there are lots of moments where having someone who has more authority or more knowledge do those actions, say those things, take that moment, can say a lot more about not only the world and the other characters in it, but it can also tell you that the protagonist isn't in as much power as you think they are. They aren't as active in what is going on in the world that they're in as you might think, because you assume that they are, but they're not always. And I really like that we're getting this moment with Hang Sang instead of Bam, instead of Lororo. Like, he's the one who is coming in and taking that role of controlling the information that they know and introducing the next challenge that they're going to have to face. Even though he's not directly the one who is going to be part of the test, really, because it is the eel thing, but he's still maintaining that control and that presence, which I like. And that's it. We just got like the ominous picture of like, honestly, some really nicely painted rock. I don't do a lot of landscapes, so I appreciate when other people can do natural textures. Okay, next chapter though. Chapter 60. I find it really interesting in this first panel that we have like the fish, because there's something almost star-like in it, because they're looking up in like the next panels, because I'm assuming they're submerged for this. So the fact that they're like looking up and seeing these white contrasting fish to like this really dark water, it's almost an homage to stars, but while being underwater, which I think is also really cool just because there's a lot of marine imagery with the whole series. So the fact that like if you're underwater, it's more likely that you're gonna look up and see like other fish as opposed to like seeing stars in the sky and stuff like that. Also feels a little bit ominous because we immediately have Rachel as like the first person who ends up acknowledging what's going on. Partly she's saying it's pretty, which might be an acknowledgement of the fact that she already has this fascination with stars, but it might also be a bit of a foreshadowing moment. Maybe the stars that she's looking for are just an illusion and she's never actually going to get there. Maybe. I just feel like it's going to be an empty thing for her. I don't have high hopes. See, that makes me think of like Milky Way there, where you can like see the kind of like gas clouds and stuff. What are you? I hope you're not deadly because you're really cute. They're like little dolphins, but they're also kind of like birds, and I think I love them. Okay, you're throwing a lot of words at me like I'm supposed to know the context. Are these the herders? Is that what they are? Why are we talking about coffee machines? I mean, Hang Sang does have something to do with this in some capacity, so I guess coffee machines make sense. Coffee related things. But also, like, what is happening? Are the little adorable creatures with the flowers part of the test? Because they make my heart warm, and that's always a good thing. Okay, we're hunting them? You better not be hunting the cuties. Look, I have a lot of thoughts about hunting and what have you anyway, so quick story time. The one time I went fishing and I caught a fish, the first time I caught a fish and I got upset, so my dad said that I could just kiss the fish better and we'll put it back, and then I made him kiss it better because I was like, parents have to do it. Only parents kissing a boo-boo can make it better. So that is the only fish I've ever caught in my life. So that's where I'm coming from as a person. So the idea that we're going to be hunting something makes me upset. At least when they're like doing hunting things with each other, everybody knows what's going on. Animals don't know that you're hunting them. They don't know what is going on most of the time, especially if they're not used to being attacked. Do they have any natural predators? What kind of instincts are involved? I'm very concerned. Yeah, I was like, Rock's probably into this though, because hunting is his thing, so he's probably in it. Okay, so they're not hunting? They're really cute. I do hope that they're not deadly because I think they're cute. I also think Rock is cute, so I guess I have exceptions. See, it is kind of cute. Though I feel like this might be kind of like how I feel with Pokemon, where there are Pokemon where I'm like, you're really cute, but if you existed in real life, I would be worried for my own safety. It's called a Goby Dolphin. That is so cute. I really want it to not be deadly because I also kind of want one. Okay, there's also a queen that we must go after, I'm assuming, or at least is important to some capacity. Oh good, a diagram. Love a good diagram. So there's a hole and then there's a further tunnel. Yeah, it does kind of look like a wine glass, doesn't it? They use Shinsu. They make a little net. They work together. Such good workers. Okay, so make the net, gather the fish towards the queen in the center. Understood. I really don't like the screeching sound. Nothing good comes from screeching sound in the distance. Oh my gosh, is it a call to arms or something? So it looks like Kun is taking point. He's got all the controls of everybody out there. We got Bam and Rachel together because Bomb probably isn't leaving Rachel's side after what happened last time. Making the net? Are they supposed to be caught by the net to get close to the queen? What's the plan? Deliberately being kept in the dark. Yeah, see, that's what I said. I was like, are they intentionally being caught in the net? Because it seems like an easier way to get close to the queen is to just be part of the flow that is going towards her. But like also, if you're being treated as fish, you might almost get eaten, and that also seems like a problem. I hope that Bomb and Rachel have got some backup of some kind, because not that I don't trust Bomb, but he isn't the most experienced in fighting, and Rachel seems likewise, especially after the injury. Doesn't mean that she can't adapt to her new disability and stuff like that, but she hasn't had time, really. Is there already another hole in, or are we tunneling? It just seems like a lot of elaborate planning going into this. Also, it seems odd to me that Hong Sung going through all of the steps for this plan, like it's Hong Sung's plan, but like what's the test then? Is it just to get Bomb to the queen and then something happens with that interaction? Because it is Bomb's test. Ultimately, he's the one that needs to pass with Rachel in tow. It just seems odd that they don't have to try and figure it out on their own, because it seems way more Tower-esque to just kind of throw them in with like a basic idea of what's going on and have them figure it out on their feet. I'm sorry, can we, I just want us to backtrack a tad and talk about getting into the queen's mouth and getting swallowed. I just feel like we're encouraging Bomb and Rachel to be eaten, and I'd like us to go back to that point briefly and discuss alternate possibilities. This feels very Jonah and the Whale. Something about endure her digestive juices is just no, just don't like that. Don't like any part of that. Interesting analogy. It's true. They're probably gonna have to deal with some stuff. Oh, okay, so there are natural predators. A follow-up question. Do those natural predators know that they come out at a certain time and have a surplus of fish and may use that to their advantage? Just a question to throw out to the universe. Ooh, there are other creatures. Are these the predators? Thief? He looks like he has a mask on. Barnacle goblin? But that's also kind of cute. I know they're not supposed to be cute. I'm sure that they're deadly in their own right. But also, barnacle goblin just sounds cute to me. They're little slug things that they're riding. Maybe not a slug because of the whole aquatic imagery thing. Sea cucumber? Perhaps. Interesting to talk about stealing the fish though, because I was wondering if it was the Goby Dolphins. I can't say with a straight face, it's too cute. Or if it was the fish that they were hurting, like which one would be the target for other predators. So Hong Sung saying, like, calling them a thief, obviously, that they come in for the fish that is being herded and not for the Goby Dolphins themselves. I can't say it with a straight face. Okay. Okay. So they have the wet worm to elongate so that they can get into the specific. Okay, so a follow-up question. Is wine glass something that was there naturally, or is it something that the Goby Dolphins, I'll be able to say it with a straight face at one of these points, create? Like a beehive or like an anthill or something? Like, is it a structure that they create through like tunneling so that it has a very specific shape in order to like have the rising and falling water levels to herd fish? Or was it there naturally and they're just taking advantage of it? This may be too much detail to ask about. There may not be intricate knowledge about like the details of like how these particular breeds work, but I'm just here to ask questions into the void sometimes. Ooh, cutting the worm's belly though. I don't like that. Okay, so avoid the worm. Apparently we have to choose what to be eaten by. That's our test now. What are you? Striped earth pig. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. Probably deadly in that it eats the Goby Dolphins, but it still looks like it is fluffy and may be nice to cuddle. I like when a lot of looks similar to Rock. I mean, that is a good comparison, and I do think Rock is cute, so maybe that's where I'm coming from. My bias is coming through with that particular aesthetic, I guess. I didn't know that I had that kind of aesthetic in me, but apparently that's where we're at. What is the bull? It sounds intimidating. What is that? And why? Appeared a few years ago. Where did it come from? Why don't we know anything about it? Silhouette is similar to Rock. I mean, truth, the spear just big and intimidating. I feel unnerved by the fact that Hong Sung is like, so it appeared recently and it shouldn't be here and we don't really know where it came from or what it is. Because I feel like if anyone knows the intricate details of what's going on and the creatures that are on this particular floor, it's Hong Sung. And when Hong Sung doesn't know something, it makes me uncomfortable. Because even if Hong Sung knows and is choosing not to tell anybody, that's one thing. But if he legitimately doesn't know, that makes me nervous. Like, it's just, anyway, carrying on. Yeah, I'm with Bomb on this one. Same facial expression. How do you accidentally run into it and that, like, if the bull just, like, shows up and you're there? But, like, very matter of fact to just be like, yeah, they were all eaten. Anyways, moving on. Have fun with your test. Like, I know that Hong Sung isn't, like, the most, I don't know, soft-hearted of people, but does seem like an intimidation tactic to just be like, the last ones that saw him were eaten. Have fun. I feel like this is all foreshadowing that it's definitely gonna show up, because why set that up and not pay it off? So I feel like we're gonna have to deal with the bull at some point. That'll be an adventure, I guess. Ooh, what is it though? It's almost like it has something covering its face or something. Because you could see like what looked like an eye, but it's hard to tell. I feel like it has something like on the one covering like half of its face or something like that. No, don't be over. No, I need more closure. It's too ominous to end there. So I think by far my favorite thing about those two chapters was that we had a chapter that was almost entirely without dialogue. So it was basically a silent representation of what was going on, because I really liked it as this breathing moment to show some progression and really establish where the characters are before we went into this final test, because I like getting those character moments. I'm huge into character development and all that kind of stuff too, but I feel like it's really important to have this quiet moment, because it almost feels like foreshadowing not only about like the really crazy stuff that's probably going to happen in this last test, but also I think continuing the story. I feel like this might be our last moment for them to like truly breathe and be closer to being kids and youthful and more innocent, especially with Bomb, before transitioning into some new phase of the story. Because I still really feel like when this chapter ends, something is going to happen to pivot the story. Not only because like it should, in terms of like good story writing, if you're going to end a chapter, there should be something that happens that shifts the way that the story works, but I also feel like we're just building up to that. It feels like the particular format that we're in now can't sustain for very long, and the more that we're getting into the characters, I feel like that's only more true, because Bomb is going to shift so dramatically with who he is. He's already quite different from who he was at the beginning of the story to who he is now, that I feel like as he starts to shift and figure out more about who he is, and that's like before he maybe discovers something about his past. We know that his memory has been wiped in some capacity, so I feel like we're gonna have to loop back around to that, but I feel like he is going to shift too much for his current like surface level motivations to really hold up, and I feel like that's going to happen with more and more of the characters as they learn about each other, as they go through more things, as they get deeper into the tower. Like, I feel like you might start with some superficial motivations for being the tower. It's about the prestige. It's because you want something specific. You got pressured into it by family or other forces. All of them have very clear reasons for being there. I think you need something more once you start to get into harder and harder challenges. We're still only on F and Kel's floor, and we've already seen them start to shift and also see their current motivations, or what they thought their motivations were, start to crumble, and them having to reevaluate what motivates them. So I feel like we're just really gearing up to something really intense, and I feel like this is a very nice breathing moment where it really let the moments just play out with these characters and them interacting with each other and getting to have a moment to breathe before everything just goes haywire. I'm sure as we've already gotten into this test, we've had a lot of setup of how it's going to work and some of the world building around this particular wine glass setup, and of course the ominous bull thing that has also shown up and is probably going to show up and cause havoc, so we'll deal with that. I'm concerned about the idea the point of the test is for Bomb and Rachel to be swallowed. That seems like a bad idea, but here we are. So lots of things that I'm sure will go sideways in this test. I feel like it's supposed to be very straightforward, probably difficult, but at least there's like a clear path of what is a pass and what is a fail. And I feel like as the test develops, there's just going to be more things that pop up, and that is going to cause more and more issues for how they're going to deal with it. So it'll be interesting if nothing else. And I'm not over the Goby Dolphins. Okay, I thought that Chibi Rock was like the last little bit of cute that I was gonna get, and then they gave me dolphins, and I think I love them, and I want them to be okay and to be harmless to basically everything, because I just want them to be this precious little thing that I can think is cute without it being ruined, but I don't know if I'll get that. So I hope you enjoyed reading those chapters along with me. You can click those plays to go and see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so that this next time I post a Tower of God video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!